Well, I've been told by various people that have told me that no Italian would attempt this. You know.
It is very important to have new challenges and beauty. Beauty is the most important thing to live with. And here you can live with beauty.
Jim, did you ever imagine that one day you would own a castle? Was this always in your
Yeah, that was
plan?
always in the plan, right?
In Italy?
Yeah, in Italy.
Is your wife a dreamer and an optimist like you, or?
She has a mind for it of going forward, not as a dream, but as something real.
Buongiorno. This episode of Renovating a Ruin, I thought I would take you inside someone else's renovation project, a decaying castle left practically abandoned in a hilltop Tuscan village of Trequanda. Trequanda you will find between Siena and Cortona, the town made famous by Under the Tuscan Sun. And this castle, Castello Cacciaconti, is now owned by a man named Jim and his wife and a couple of their friends. And they have the very ambitious but exciting goal to inject life into the castle and this little town and bring them both back to their former glory.
Because my wife and I purchased a house in the village of Trequanda, end of 2007, with Vincent's help. Vincent has helped us along the way, every step of the way since that time. So we went through a 2-year restoration process. And then we started inviting guests to use the house when we weren't using it. And we started seeing the reaction of people who actually stayed in the village. After about 3 days, their bodies start to change, their whole attitude of life starts to change, and we thought, okay, something's going on here, something important, because we could feel it, and other people were feeling it. So we started thinking, okay, how can we share that experience? And about the same time, we became aware of Castello Cacciaconti, which takes up about 1/3 of the village. And unless you know it's here, you might not even realize it's here. We said, what's this? What's going on? It's not being used. And we started talking to the villagers, and we invited Vincent and his wife Francesca Fumi, who's an art historian, very well known in this area, invited them in to see it and said, what do you think? And of course their reaction was, this is an absolute gem. Yeah. It's really unfortunate that it's not being used. Yeah. I don't know, Vincent, your impressions maybe when you first
saw my impression was of disgust, because such a beautiful property was just left unused in this village, and people were leaving the village because there was no activities. And I was wondering what the potentials were of this building. And so we talked about it with Jim and other people, and we reached a conclusion that we could study something out to make it work. Right. And make it be something important for the village and try to get residents back. Cortona is down there.
Oh wow, no.
Now you know where you are.
Oh wow. Is it known when was the last time that it was inhabited?
Actually, there was a caretaker living 2 floors below this up until about 25 years ago.
Okay.
But since that time, there's been nobody.
Right. Is that an old projector? No. What is it? Because I see the seats and...
Let's say the theater is just...
I was born in the United States. I have dual citizenship.
I see.
And I studied law in Florence.
Oh, wow.
Because I couldn't go to the States to university because of the Vietnam War.
Right.
And my wife, I was lucky to marry an art historian. My folks were all artists, a painter, my father, and a famous sculptor in America, my grandfather.
So you're not your average lawyer then. You're a lawyer with an appreciation for beauty.
I feel like I'm an eternal tourist.
He's a Renaissance man with a law degree.
And Jim, where are you from in the States?
I'm from Seattle. Yeah. I'm a Seattle native.
How different is Seattle from Trequanda?
Actually, we were attracted to Trequanda initially by the people here, who were so friendly and so welcoming. And it's a small community, has a small community feel, so you get to know everybody. And that's something that's been lost for the most part in the United States, because people generally don't even know their neighbors. Yeah. So we're lucky because we live in Seattle. We live actually right in the middle of Seattle, but where we live in a houseboat community. Okay. So when you ask how is it different from Trequanda, for us, there's some real strong similarities, and I think it's because we're attracted to that close-knit, small community feel.
It's an intimacy that's missing from most suburbs, most towns in many countries today, I think.
That's true. That's true. We love watching the reaction of our guests here, because after a few days, they realize that they've lost that. And they sit down for a 4-hour dinner with 10 or 12 people around the table talking until 11 o'clock at night, and they realize, ooh, we've lost that back in the States. Yeah. And that's really important to have that communication. So that's what, we're trying to create a situation here where people can recover some of those things that throughout the world, really, people are craving that. They're craving handmade things. They're craving really strong interpersonal relationships that have been lost. So if we can capture that in a really authentic way, then I think we've done our job.
Walking around with you, countless rooms and spaces.
You haven't seen all of them.
You seem very much at home here. I mean, even though the renovations have not even yet begun, you're showing me as though you live here, and it's beautiful, because for such an enormous space, one could feel overwhelmed, but you, as you were walking through the spaces, you have this rapport with the castle that is very interesting.
Yeah, Vincent and I have spent a lot of time here, and it's very complex.
I should have mentioned you're an architect by profession.
So I do that all the time, but this is so complex that it just there aren't straight lines, there aren't straight walls, everything kind of angles and up and down. So it does take time to sort of grasp where everything is. Yeah.
There are other investors who have joined this project.
So we put together a team of investors, primarily in the United States, and primarily in Seattle, and we're looking for more investors, of course. But then we've also put together the team in Italy that brings the expertise. Right. How do you do a project in Italy? Yeah. Well, we don't have that expertise by ourselves. We have a team in Italy, and we meet under normal circumstances. We meet
once a week.
On Zoom once a week.
Quick and easy. Quick and easy, because the school, I'm sure it has lots of interest, but I don't know how much money you can get from the school.
Younger musicians from Italy.
Okay.
Vincent, I might ask also your opinion, because some might say, foreigners coming in, investing in Italy, people might say, they might not understand it, they might not be culturally sensitive to the architecture, to the history. But actually, in my experience and speaking with my husband, the Italians, for the most part, are really grateful, because that's what towns like this need. That's what little villages, that's what crumbling palazzi like this need, because otherwise a lot of the Italians can be quite cynical and say, it's so much work. They don't perhaps see the potential, or they don't have that entrepreneurial spirit. Is that...
These places have been like this for a long time, and sort of they sit here, and there's no initiative to be able to express what they want to do and carry it on.
Yeah.
So what we need is new people that come in and see these things and appreciate them, and not just undertake them, but really actively move on to it. And that's what the Americans do usually. We need the fresh potentials, the fresh financing that Americans can bring, and give in return culture to the Americans that come here, teach them what Italy is all about. This is the great opportunity to unite together in something that is very important, and especially under the cultural point of view. An American doesn't realize how much culture is embedded here that can be shared with the people that come and live here. And I share it with my wife, who is very deeply cultured. She's a professor of history of art. I never end learning things, and this is something that helps your mind go ahead and helps you live longer too, as my past new experiences, I must say, teach me. So using your mind, especially aging, is very important to have new challenges and learning new things and beauty. Beauty is the most important thing to live with there is in lifetime. And here you can live with beauty. There's beauty all over the place. There's the nature that's so beautiful. There's the buildings that are so beautiful. And the cities, the towns that are around here are so beautiful. You learn what beauty means. And all these things, if you are patient enough to understand it, then you really get into a new life. You get into a new life, and when you go back to the States, as my father did when he came over and he learned all these things, and then he went back to do the military, he understood the difference between going into a museum in Italy and then going out and seeing the same things you see in the museum versus going to a museum in America. Then you go out and you're in a shock.
As you were saying, Jim, the people here are only too happy to see investment happening in little towns like this, because otherwise they can turn into ghost towns. And it's the saddest thing I've seen in different parts of Tuscany. The older elderly generation dies off, or the children want to go and live in the big cities, and then there's no life put into these hilltop towns. And consequently, a tourist can go past and say, oh, how picturesque, how beautiful. But the people who live there every day say, no, we're dying here. That we need to protect this. And it's only with projects like yours that can happen, because it does bring so much to a town like, especially a town as small as Trequanda. I mean, you're injecting life into the village, no?
Well, that's the whole idea. When we first bought here, I mean, we were relatively new to Italy. We'd spent a little bit of time here, but we weren't sure as Americans how we would be accepted, especially in a small village. And we very quickly found that people were very gracious and very happy that we were doing what we were doing, which is helping bring some life to the village. And so we've had quite a few years where we can just talk to the villagers about what they would like to see happen, because it's as you described. The kids grow up, and there's a limited number of things to do in the village. They've got to find a job, or they need a more exciting social environment They might leave the village because of that. But there are families here that have been here a long time that are really trying hard to figure out a way that their family can stay here.
Yes.
After talking to those people here in the village, that convinced us, okay, they want to be here. They want their families to be here. They grew up here. They're
Ancestors.
they're invested in this region, and it's a crime if they are forced to leave. Sure. So we spent a lot of time talking to them about what would it take, for them to stay. How do we do that in a respectful way?
And explain to me briefly, because I know you're still in the embryonic stage of the project right now, but what is the plan for the space?
Well, the plan for the castle is basically to provide a cultural space that can feature all of the things that Tuscany does really well already. But to do it in a way that can introduce it to a lot of new people. So the focus is on the culinary, on music, and on the visual arts. You can find these things throughout Italy, throughout Tuscany, in many, many locations. But it's maybe a bit rare to find a place where you can experience all three of those together that are truly integrated: the food, the music, and the visual arts. And that's one of the unique things about this project, and it's one of the things that Vincent and his wife Francesca bring to this project, and that is a passion for the entire culture. And I wasn't kidding when I said he's a Renaissance man, because that's what we're trying to do. Renaissance artists they were artists, they were architects, musicians, mathematicians. So we're trying to feature those things at a very high level here in the castle. And the challenge, of course, and the reason that it's sitting empty right now is that these things are very challenging economically. Sure. It's an expensive process to try to restore these facilities and maintain these facilities and sustain these facilities. But we're convinced that if we do it at a high level and bring all of those things together in a really unique experience, that people will come and create energy. In talking to villagers, there's a beautiful theater associated with the castle. And there are people here today that they lament the fact that they can't use the theater. They remember the Saturday night dances. Wow. They remember the Tuesday night men's only film night. They remember more shops along the streets. So and they crave the return of that activity.
May I add that in my family, we always had a dinner and a lunch at home on Sundays. And my father would invite his clients, and they would talk about art while we were listening to music in the background and eating wonderful lunches. And he would show his paintings. So, amazing. I mean, it's something that's embedded into our culture to do that. Yeah. And that's what they used to do in the Renaissance, too. They used to have wonderful dinners. They would have a little orchestra playing while the artists were explaining their pieces of art. Yeah.
And we've actually already done that as a test, essentially, because we've done a couple of pretty major concerts in the piazza in Trequanda that were, filled the piazza to overflowing and were great success. Usually ahead of time, before people come to stay at our house for a week, they say, what am I going to do in a small village for a whole week? And then they discover, no, they need a lifetime. After a few days of touring around, frequently people, not just because they're tired, but they'll say, I think I would just like to sit and enjoy the village today. And I love that response.
Wow.
The base of the tower
Oh, gosh.
And I think there might be a tunnel
Right.
from somewhere in this area out to that area in the garden.
Uh-huh.
I don't know if you saw it or not.
Yeah.
Sort of Sallyport area.
Yeah.
Garden. There's a bricked up wall at the end of that. I think is maybe a tunnel into.
Well, they usually are, aren't they?
Into this area.
Yeah,
coming
yeah.
up.
These stones, these arches, from what period are they?
Well, they go back to the medieval period. The tower over there is of the 1100, and there's a coat of arms there is the 1200, and it's the oldest coat of arms that is still existing outside that can be found around. So this is a real historical place, a historical castle.
The castle is about a 3-year restoration, which we think will start mid 2024.
So, Jim, you have some experience with renovating in Italy. I got a glimpse this morning of the beautiful house that you guys renovated and rent out now.
That was a project. It was starting to deteriorate, hadn't been lived in for a while, and that was a 2-year restoration. We did a total restoration. Took the roof off, did all the seismic work, restored every surface, put in all new mechanical systems, and actually tried to return the house to a state that was closer to what it originally was, than it was when we purchased it. Yeah. I call it forensic architecture, trying to figure out what happened when. You look at this facade, and when you really look at it, there's all kinds of arches and places where there were windows at one time, and they've been closed up. And you ask yourself, well, when did that happen, and why did that happen?
This is an intimidating renovation. You're not completely naive to what it means to renovate in Italy, because you have done a 2-year project. So you weren't deterred after that?
No, it was thanks to Vincent and other really great team members, including a fantastic contractor. It was a very good experience.
Right.
And, it was challenging. I had never worked on a stone house before. I had no idea how you put plumbing and wiring into a stone house, so that was very fun to learn that. But see, I don't look at this project as being any more complicated than our house from a technical standpoint in terms of restoring it. It's just 10 times as large, right? So it maybe takes more workers and such. But the actual steps that you go through, take the roof off, do the seismic work, put the roof back on, do this, do that. It's pretty much the same.
Yeah.
There's just a lot more of it.
Good for you for having this type. This is what my Italian friends say to me. It's like you need a foreigner to have that kind of vision and optimism, because a lot of the time, not all, but a lot of Italians will say, oh, che fatica, like how much effort to even just to ask for all the permits is so laborious. So.
Well, I've been told by various people that have told me that no Italian would attempt this.
Well, I had experience myself with my wife's house.
Well, yeah, you have a very
a farmhouse that was abandoned for 30 years by my father-in-law, and and I said, well, come on, we have to renovate this. And she said, oh, well, why don't we sell it? And I said, no, I like this house, and it is beautiful, and I just started renovating it and worked on it myself a lot, and and the clients that couldn't pay me, they helped me too. So it was fun.
What would each of you give as advice to someone who's sitting here right now watching this video and saying, "Gosh, it's my dream to restore something in Italy, to buy in Italy"?
Well, I would say don't worry about it. These things are done. Sit down and enjoy the ride.
That's essentially what we did. And being an architect, I've always loved Italy, right? So, and I've had some experience with historical structures otherwise. So I love the challenge. I think if if you have a passion for Italy, it makes it much easier.
Yeah.
Because I'm very hands-on, so I like to get dirty and really dig into things, and not everybody is like that. So talk to people, find a good team, a trustworthy team, and it can happen. Somebody coming in cold, it could still be done if you are careful about how you put together your team.
Is your wife a dreamer and an optimist like you, or?
I should let Vincent answer that question.
His wife is fantastic. I think she's more of a dreamer than he is, as a matter of fact. But it's not more of a dreamer. Is that she has a mind for it, and she has the consciousness of going forward, not as a dream, but as something real.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
She think she's sure it's real, and by this security she's giving Jim and giving me, and she's confident of all the issues that can arise, and she's confident they can be solved.
Yeah, I think exactly, and I think there are a lot of hurdles to get over. She's very calm about sort of thinking through, how do we do this?
Often when a property has a well-defined purpose, it tends to attract like minds effortlessly, because people, like you say, who have a deep appreciation of music, of beauty, of art, of the silence of a little village like this, will come and say, okay, how can I be involved? How can I stay here, be a part of it, work here, invest potentially? And this is what is so beautiful about this place, is you've got so far to go on the renovations, but you know exactly where you're headed. I think it seems like you've got quite a clear vision.
The reaction of people who hear about this is just like what you said. I would like to be there. I would like to be part of it.
My wife has involved also a restorer that restores the paintings for the Uffizi. So there could be a cabinet here where she is willing to come every week, once a week at least, to show how a piece of art, important piece of Renaissance art, can be restored. And at that point, see how this work in progress goes ahead. And the next year they can come back and see it restored already.
Amazing.
And
you have a reception celebrating the finishing of this painting, and you have music, and you have food, and you integrate the whole thing.
Oh, it sounds magical, and I hope if you'll have me, I can come back at some stage when you start some of the works and share with my audience where you're at, what stage you're at in 6 months or so, and it's exciting.
We would love that.
Pleasure.
Yeah.